name is Nikki, and I am here with Princess Faith. Faith, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Great. Today, we have got cinnamon rolls, coffee, and we are reviewing The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. Let's get started.
Essentially, this book is about a kid named Mikey who lives in a world where every day there's something catastrophic happening, like some apocalypse or the end of the world situation.
We were talking earlier about all the subplots. What are some of the subplots that are going on in this?
Some of the subplots. Well, we have the interesting situation with Mikey and his family where his mom is running for...
I think it's like a
political thing.
It's a state senator or something like that. There's also he's in love with his neighbor, but is he not? But is he?
Well,
no
we
one
don't know.
knows. No one knows. It's cool because it's just the way it's set up. It's in the background there's this huge typical YA plot going on where it's just oh no, the things. And then that kind of sometimes leaks into his plot, but it doesn't dominate his plot. In fact, I think the most accurate description for this book is that it's a really clever collection of subplots.
Yeah.
When you think about it. Kid Mikey just so happens to live in this world where the world is pretty much ending every day, and it's up to the indie kids, the hipsters, to always save it, but he's not one of them. And so, yep, that's what happened. As if we can make this any more awkward. I need a cinnamon roll.
I can't eat cinnamon rolls without a fork.
Yeah, you can. Be brave.
My hands get sticky.
Well, yeah, that's the point. That's why I have napkins. Oh.
Yeah.
That's so good. Patrick Ness, who writes The Things. The feelsies things. He's written stuff I have it here in my notes. He's written More Than This, the Chaos Walking series, which starts with the Knife of Never Letting Go, I think.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
I read the beginning. It was it was definitely weird. And then the most we've come in contact with him is a little ditty called A Monster Calls. What's your experience with A Monster Calls?
I've read it twice, and it's ruined my life both times.
I've read it once. It ruined my life once.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
It gets too real too fast.
It gets fast.
Really real, especially for a book with giant monsters.
Right.
Or a giant monster. There was just some words. Yeah. And now there's a movie with Liam Neeson.
But read the book first.
But I don't know if I can approve of that or not. Do you approve?
We'll see.
How did you... Should I go first? Should you go first?
You can go first.
Okay, yeah. This book! Oh my goodness! With this... So I have her reviewing it with me, Princess Faith of blogging fame. I have her reviewing it with me because she's the one who recommended it to me. She came into my office at work one day. She's like, Nikki, this book! And I'm like, what? And then she explains it to me, just there's indie kids, and there's kid Mikey, and then it's just the world is ending, but it's not, and there's a deer at some point, and I'm like, oh my gosh, those are all the things I look for in a book! So I went and picked up this book, and I finished it in a day. I love this book. It's just I keep telling people this, it's exactly my type of stupid. All the chapter headings begin with this YA-ish, it's a satire of YA, and I write YA. The satire, the thing that they're satiring is exactly the stuff I write, and I love it anyway. She loves books that take themselves way too seriously. I love books that don't take themselves seriously at all. Somehow this book is both. It's fantastic.
I was kind of iffy at the beginning because I wasn't sure if they were serious or not. With every day the world was ending and I'm waiting for him to say it wasn't, but it was. And I was confused.
And what a statement on life that was.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, and there's talking about gods and all this weird immortal stuff, and I'm waiting for him to, talk about how it was all in this kid's head, but it never did. And so I got to the end of the book and I was kind of confused. And then I realized I kind of liked it.
So you like thought it was a hallucination the entire time?
The entire time. I was like, when are you going to say that it's fake? And there's even one point where he points out, you might not believe me, but this is all true. And I'm like, I don't believe you.
But there's kind of like a running theme of that, of like the parents don't believe them, but they remember going through it.
Which is why I thought it was a hallucination, because the parents don't believe, but like the kids do.
But the parents kind of do believe at the same time.
Right.
They're just not willing to admit it.
Certain parents too.
Yeah. Things that Patrick Ness does right, typically, with my experience with him, is that he's so good at making a world feel so real without necessarily having to do a bunch of world building. YA, one thing that's characteristic of it, I feel, is that you condense words. Like, everything you say is just on point. You don't really waste much time. Patrick does that very well while still giving us the impression of a bigger world with fewer words. So there's that. There's also some really awesome humor in it, especially in those chapter titles. I feel like if you wanted to go back and reread the book just for the chapter titles, you'd still get almost as much out of it. Protagonists and their vulnerabilities are on point. Mental illness and a bunch of other issues that this deals with, like Alzheimer's and bad parenting and school drama and romances, are dealt with really well because they're not laser focused. Like, they're not all the main plot.
I really like the aspect that he did on mental illness because it's something that I personally work with a lot. And I liked how he made his characters be more than their mental illness. Like, they had all these issues going on, but it wasn't their life. Like, it didn't define them, and I thought that was really cool.
One thing I will say is that a lot of the characters at some points kind of like just sounded the same. Didn't necessarily take away all that much, but it did kind of pull you a bit out of the suspension of disbelief. It felt like there were a lot of convenient characters, like not every character was given its due diligence. A couple of them, and even these characters were kind of made into little jokes and stuff like that, so it was really easy to cover up, but all the same, they lacked something. Like, it felt like you could have gone a little farther with them, especially since this book is really condensed and fast-paced. Maybe there were things that were cut out, but I feel like it wouldn't have taken away from the plot to focus on them a little more. In particular, I'm thinking about one of the main characters. The main character's older sister gets a boyfriend at some point that is just continually called Call Me Steve. And there were times where it just felt like he was there to be there, like to offer a different viewpoint, and even some of the things that he said seemed uncharacteristic, but he said them because it was kind of needed in the scene. Anything to add?
No, although I agree with the Call Me Steve thing. I didn't, like, you could probably just plop him out of the story.
It didn't really make much of a difference. He was just there to be there.
He was just there.
Yeah.
But still great.
He did offer an interesting perspective of just, like, he was the in-between the adults and the teenagers.
True.
And he kind of believed them, but he didn't really at the same time. And it's just like, it's not so much that he didn't believe them, it's just that he was continually surprised by what was happening around him. If they explored that would have been interesting too, just to see what kind of thing in growing up makes you lose that aspect of, like, the world is... Gee whiz, that was a metaphor. I feel like we both need a bite of cinnamon roll for that.
You shouldn't be allowed to be on YouTube.
No. We don't believe we're on TV. Favorite lines! I'm going first. Chapter the 2nd, in which indie kid Satchel writes a poem and her mom and dad give her loving space just to feel what she needs to. Then an indie kid called Dylan arrives at her house, terrified, to say a mysterious glowing girl has informed him of the death of indie kid Finn. Satchel and Dylan comfort each other, platonically. I love that last part, just like, platonically. Just need to make a point of that.
What's also important is that I know a big part of that worry is no matter what group of friends you're in, no matter how long you've known them, you always assume you're the least wanted person there, the one everyone else could do without. Poor Mikey.
Poor Mikey. Chapter the 10th, in which indie kids Joffrey and Earth disappear from their homes, their bodies found miles away. Satchel goes into hiding at an abandoned drive-in with fellow indie kids Finn, Dylan, Finn, Lincoln, Archie, Wisconsin, Finn, Aquamarine, Finn, and Dylan, and Finn. Seeing the blue light in the night, Satchel meets a boy from the amulet, the handsomest one she's ever seen. He tells her that this isn't a safe place for her or the others and that they should run, then tells her that she's beautiful in her own special way, and that's when she knows she can trust him. The indie kids go back to their homes.
Isn't that the problem, though? Isn't that what's causing the fear? Why do you have to solve everything? Why can't you just solve today?
Do you have a book recommendation that's on my shelf that you want picked up and show?
Down funny story.
Got it.
What do you think I was gonna pick?
Heck yes! Heck yes. It's a really fast-paced read. Like I said, I finished it in a day, and granted, I'm kind of a fast reader, but for the average reader, that probably translates to, 2-3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it goes really fast, and you're so interested in the story that you could finish it in a day without even knowing. It keeps you interested. You're not, bored or just flipping through the pages. It's something you want to read.
It feels like every page, not that every page is a cliffhanger, but you get so invested that it feels like every page is a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You can't leave it as it is. You can't put it down. Even though, really, it's not, thrilling, but you still,
Yeah.
It's a genre read for a contemporary audience. We salute you, Ness. We love you, Ness.
You would like It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. I recommend this book to everyone I've ever met, ever. It's about a kid who tries to kill himself, but then checks himself into a mental hospital instead. So it deals a lot with mental illness. It's got that humor, like Patrick Ness does really well. It's a really easy read, I think. It's not too heavy, and it doesn't really take itself that seriously, and it's beautiful, and I love it. It's my favorite book.
What I recommend is I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak, particularly for people who like The Rest of Us Just Live Here, just because it's about people just living kind of in the same way that The Rest of Us Just Live Here is. It's also kind of a collection of subplots. It's got a bit of intrigue, which is really, really cool, and it's not hard to read at all. It's real light. It doesn't necessarily deal with really heavy subjects, but it deals with difficulties in life, maybe smaller ones that you don't typically pay attention to, which is what I find really fascinating about it. This is Princess Faith, dear friend Princess Faith. She has a blog. She blogs things. Read it. She's also got really great photography. And also, if you're coming from Faith's blog and you're just chilling here, hi, my name is Nikki. You're probably watching my channel, Nick Mac Patty Whack. I've got Geeky Writer's Toolbox episodes 1 and 2 up, and 3 is on the way soon, so expect that. Hopefully I'm funny. I guess you'll just have to watch to find out. And lastly, don't forget that you have a great God, and He is with you every step that you take. Till next time, nerds. Bye. We're just gonna eat the rest of these right now.
Oh.
Why? This is living.
I love being an adult.
Yeah. This is what adulthood looks like. Forget taxes. It's all about the cinnamon rolls. You ate two?
I heard that. I thought I was gonna eat them all. I wasn't kidding, I'm so hungry. Cinnamon rolls are my weakness.